Okay, didn't even have a... So this is officially also my sound check, which is great. Wonderful. Okay, good morning, and impressive that you are here on a Sunday morning at exactly 10 o'clock. What did you do last night? Okay. Yeah, but we are going to talk about money, and we're going to talk about the trends and the power player of film and content financing. And this panel is together with CresCine, so it is a very specific panel that we have this morning, so I guess you wanted to be there. That's great. So we're going to discuss together if film financing is actually back on track after a shockwave, so to speak, of bankruptcies, player shutdowns, slowly recovering productions, and we want also to go fast forward. We don't want to stay in the past, but we want to go fast forward to see like, what's next? What's happening now and what's next? What is also innovative in non-public financing? Which type of budget, etc., etc. We're going to have it all. Anyway, I'm AC Coppens. I'm the founder of The Catalyst. I'm going to be your guide today, together with our three wonderful speakers. And I'm going to ask each of you to tell a little bit more. I'm going to start the introduction. I'm going to start with you, Rosa Toivonen, Chief Creative Officer at Aurora Studio, a creative powerhouse which is financing, developing, producing, and also distributing high-quality films and TV drama in the Nordics and beyond, but also manages a Finnish impact film fund, and that's probably, whoa, that's probably, it's louder now, right? It's probably the reason why, it's probably the reason why you are here today more in this function. Tell us a little bit more about your area of expertise and what you're doing there.
Thank you very much, and very nice to see you here today. So the Finnish Impact Film Fund, because maybe since this panel is about funding, I'll just go directly into the fund, is a private equity fund that invests into film and also TV series. And our specialty is that we will invest in projects originating from anywhere in the world, but they need to have an element from Finland, be it underlying IP, post-production, shooting in Finland, a talent, a composer, a sound designer, whatever you can find from Finland for your project, then you can trigger the fund.
Okay, so you're the person to ask. This is great.
Yes, me and my
triggering
my
the fund sounds amazing.
In the early morning, you want to trigger things, right? Yeah. Trigger happy.
I think you hit the nerve. I mean, everybody's totally awake suddenly, right? Wonderful, thank you. Further, Elisa Alvarez, founder of Jacaranda Consultants. The last time I saw you were still a senior, and you still are senior advisor at IPRVC. What I want to mention, because I think she's not going to tell herself, but she has been involved in the provision of corporate and project finance for studio for more than 20 years. She's an extremely great expert in international corporate and structured finance, Universal, Disney, Lionsgate, Entertainment One, Skydance, Wild Bunch. She's been involved in the provision of corporate and project finance in these studios, just to name a few. Maybe you want to tell us a little bit more about why you founded Jacaranda Consultants and what you're doing today.
That's a very good question. Thanks for asking. There is, film is part of entertainment as a sector, and as a area of investment, it is considered a bit niche and a bit esoteric, and often perceived as difficult by investors. Having worked across investment banking, commercial banking, asset management, in entertainment for, at that point, 14 years, I realized that there was definitely demand for advice to potential investors or investors that had already tested a little bit the waters in entertainment, to give them a professional advice and help them navigate the system. In other words, trying to assess risk, reward, find opportunities, and help them negotiate those terms. So that's what we do at Jacaranda, and we work with. We represent capital. We represent not so much individual investors, but more small to medium-sized venture capital funds and private funds, and occasionally some family offices as well.
Great, thank you very much. And gentlemen last, this is the way it has been for now. Louis, actually last but not least, because you have 11 films in this festival this year, which is amazing. So it's Louis Ladré, Managing Director of Logical Content Ventures, which is part of our sister of Logical Picture Group, right? The group has really made its mark in the content industry for films and TV series, thanks to specialized and autonomous sister companies like the feature film financing and production Logical Picture, the international sales Pulsar Content, advertising, Loveboat, and software tools Cascade 8. I had Cascade 8 on the panel last year. So this is great. You are expert in content financing. Tell us a little bit more about your job there, your role, and maybe about these 11 films. Tell us the secrets.
Very happy to be there today. So yeah, we have 11 films over all the different companies. So a few of them are financed by the company I work for, so Logical Content Ventures. And we have we do equity financing. So it's a company managed by Logical Pictures, and we finance European content. And this year we're very happy to have a lot of films through our deal that we have with Pathé. And I'm sure we'll talk about it because we have this big slate financing deal that has 4 films in competition, in official selection this year.
Great. So let's start right away. Tell us first, what is the state of film investment in 2024? Tell us and share with us, are we recovering from the impact of the US strikes? Are we in recession? Is there fragmentation? How do you estimate the landscape today? Who would like to start? Rosa, please.
Well, okay, I'll go first. So, of course, as we know, we are coming from a lot of different disruptions. COVID, the strikes, TV sort of series, the peak sort of receding, etc. So at the moment, many projects had difficulties in raising the last funds that they need to be completely financed. And I want to quote Phil Hunt here because he said something really interesting. He said that when we are on a downward bell curve, the only way to go back to the upward bell curve is to throw money into the market, even if it's counterintuitive. And that's actually really interesting because financiers obviously are risk averse since we are not sure if we can recoup and get our return of investment. However, there are tools that will help us to take a little bit more risk in order to throw that money into the market and help. Well, for instance, one tool that comes to mind because we are signing today, our fund is signing with the European Investment Fund. So they are giving a guarantee to funds where they will cover part of the losses in case that happens. But that's just one example.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there are also emerging models of really interesting combinations of things, like even in Europe, agencies starting to finance, maybe distributors or sales companies starting to finance. And so I think that while it is a sort of slow market and it's difficult to get financing on board, there is money all around, and we just need to sort of be able to funnel it into our projects so our ecosystem can persist and grow even during this time of recession. What do you think, Elisa?
Yes, exactly. Tell us. I love there is money still around. I'm going to note this. No, please.
Money abounds. It's just not in our pockets right now, or everyone's.
Okay.
Look, this industry is not for the faint-hearted. That is for sure. We've seen so many cycles up and down and up and down, and the investors that do well, I agree with Phil, the visionary Phil, are those that stay put, because you see opportunities precisely when there are the downs in the cycles. But to try and be more specific, yes, there is money around. The investors that are committed to the sector are looking for opportunities. And I think it's down to the producers and distributors to present and to support projects that can truly resonate with the audiences. Because what we can't afford right now, and could 2 years ago, was to invest in just anything and everything, because the streamers were there and fighting for volume as opposed to quality. That has changed substantially. It was inevitable. We all knew that that was a bubble, and those that benefited from it, well done. But now it's time to, get real again and operate as an industry. And an industry is about demand and what's on offer. And from an investor's perspective, our job is to help facilitate projects coming to life and reaching the audiences, but also select those projects that will resonate with the audiences now. Mm-hmm. Easier said than done. I totally appreciate that, but that's our job.
Thank you. Louis?
Yeah, and I completely agree with Elisa on the fact that right now I think investors are a bit more selective, and so at Logical Pictures we're in the process of raising a fund, and we actually have a few potential investors who in the end declined, saying we don't want to invest in a fund at the moment because of the end of Pick TV and the bubble that burst, but we're still very keen on looking at specific projects, and we have advised and sent over some projects, and they're very happy to look at them and start negotiations. So yeah, it's really being more selective and making sure there's actually an output for the film or the TV series.
So what are the investors looking for? I mean, when you say like it's the role of the producers, distributors to show the opportunities, to show what it will do with audiences and etc. So what is the good investable project? Is it more single film project? Is it IP? What types of budget? Can you tell me a little bit more? What is the killer app, so to speak, for this? Rosa?
I guess we're all looking for projects that are packaged in the way that is just very attractive. That's the sort of thing you cannot say no to, in a way, So it's like you look at the package and you think, okay, this is a no-brainer. Everyone will see that this is going to be great. Mm-hmm. Then, of course, I know also there is a problem at the moment of getting actors attached. Maybe not at the moment because it's been always the challenge. And obviously, because times are a bit tough, then there is a bit of challenge maybe in, getting sales, unless getting an MG from sales companies, etc., unless you have really good talent attached. Mm-hmm. So it's a sort of chicken and egg, but of course you can navigate through it, and there are, I think, opportunities there as well.
Mm-hmm. I will zoom out a little bit because we work with different types of investors, and part of our remit often is to help them strategically. So different investors have different risk profiles. Their tolerance to risk is often dictated not so much by what they are prepared to lose, but what they are looking to gain. So, and I don't want to sound too abstract here, but obviously the higher the risk, to justify the risk, you need to see that there'll be higher returns. So I think some investors that are still very active in the market are prepared to take equity risk. That means performance risk, and others less so. Some want to mitigate that risk by having a pool of projects as opposed to investing in a pool of IP as opposed to a single one. So we need to look at the specifics. But I totally agree with it. You know, you, as an investor, you are constantly trying to mitigate the risk. And where can we find, you know, be it in the structure, be it in the creative package, but ultimately, it's a collaborative work in that you have a creative producer, you will hopefully have someone that will sell it, that you trust and know that their recent track record justify their numbers, and distributors that are committed and prepared to do the legwork.
So talking about gain and return on investment, Louis, what types of budget and projects do you see here?
Sorry, what's the question?
I mean, said on based on what Elisa was saying, like the profile of risk taking and the gain expected, so the return on investment, the recoupment. What types of projects do you see coming?
So we have a very, I mean, at Logical Content Ventures, we have a very specific mandate. We are going for European projects. So that also means you can make the most of all the co-production and subsidies that you find across different territories. So, and we have a very international DNA in terms of projects. So that's what we like to do. It's going for international projects, but that make the most of the different subsidies, and it kind of lowers the risk, or have some, you know, something similar to a leverage effect, because you have not unrecoupable money that is not recouping on your investment. So that's what we're trying to do. And just to come back on what you said about the package and the IP, it's true that there are few packages, and some of them are everybody's going on it, but also it comes at a certain price. And recently we've seen, at least in France and in Europe, the big films, and it's also pretty often connected to an IP. It comes with a very high price tag and also a bigger risk. And so we've seen big inflation in very hot projects in France, and what used to be very rare in France a few years ago, meaning having projects that 30-40 million euros, is now pretty often. And studios are actually, I mean, big companies, film companies, are going for fewer projects, but with much higher budgets. And I guess it's also the same on the P&A they're spending, and they'd rather have big IP, big cast, but fewer projects.
I would like to have a transversal question, a little something, because we were saying like, hey, showing the projects with potential audiences and the difficulties we have to attach certain talent. Do you think these two problems, like predicting audiences and attaching talents, can be actually solved by the usage of artificial intelligence?
I actually do strongly believe that you can use the tools that are available now. I think they will still develop a lot more. So let's say in a year or 2 years, we can really make use of all these tools. But currently, I'm already using, many of those tools that analyze, for instance, the scripts, and also give an idea on the potential of, theatrical and streaming. So we are still we're still sort of taking estimates. So the estimate is our first reference, but we will always have a second opinion and then an AI based sort of review to sort of also look if they are all aligned. How about you guys?
Yes, exactly. What do you think about that?
I think that AI is a tool, and I certainly, have seen it working extremely well in short content. There's one company in particular that are doing that extremely well and creating branded content rather than feature film. So it's not so much what we're talking about here, but I've seen that working and informing how they grow branded, dedicated channels, and it's unbelievable. However, humans curate the information. So you get very detailed and very accurate analysis of audience trends. So what are the 18-year-old girls in Brazil watching at the moment? And that kind of informs, for the brands what they should, content that they should be creating, for instance. But then there's human intervention to determine what are we doing with that information. So it's not just AI tell us what to do.
Yeah.
It's AI informs us and we work with it.
Yeah, thank you. Luis, want to add something?
Yeah, no, it's just it's really a tool, and in the end, it just guides you in what you should do. I'm sure it also gives a lot of ideas to a lot of creators, but in the end, it's not gonna do the work for you. So you still have to be there, write, have the idea, produce. So it's just a new tool, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, just wanted to say that it is interesting because, as you know, you cannot have a magic formula that works every time. So even if you try, you cannot. It's about zeitgeist, but it's about what happens in the world. It's just about so many things that are silent signals now. So obviously, it is, as you said, only something that you can also look at, but not forget about the human experiences all the time.
Yeah, it's a co-working.
Developing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's been, fantasies about having how do you say, like a tool that would be able to predict if the film is gonna work or not. I mean, it's been for decades, and 10 or 20 years ago, the studios in the US already had and paid expensive tools to try to predict in terms of script and characters and dates of a release, and it never really worked. And I'm curious to see if real AI is going to be able to be a bit more precise, but I don't think it's going to.
Depends on the quality of the data, right? So, and did they have the data back then? Which sort of data do we have now? Because the data which we have actually collected now is impressive. It's just now to get access to that. And it's interesting because very often people think like, oh, AI and the thing and will predict. But to be honest, it's just like analyzing the data, making something out of the data, which is us. It's our behavior. So, I mean, the machine is, but that's why. Anyway, I see it like you, it's a tool. I would like to go back maybe to the more finance-oriented part. Sorry for the derail, but I really wanted to have your point of view on this. Going back, because co-productions have been really the modus operandi for quite a while already for financing pooling, but this is maybe a little bit challenging. I don't know, I would like to have your opinion on this. Are slates or company investment maybe the next big thing? How is the new normal? How is it changing? Luis, please.
Regarding slate, I think it's not so many companies are able to strike a slate deal because you need big project. It's usually linked to studios. So, I mean, in Europe, you don't have that many players that will actually benefit from a slate. But then we've seen also some producers get together in order to find new ways of financing to retain the rights of their projects. For example, there's these TV and film producers called the creatives, and they are looking for some backing either from a big corporate or an investment company to finance their films and go to streamers or distributors with a more packaged projects in order to retain rights, actually.
Okay. Any other comments on you? Otherwise, I can take the next question. No worries.
No, well, I've been structuring slate deals for more than a decade. And whether they are with, the US majors or 2 tiers down, or perhaps a development slate deal, they are very, they're very tailored to the specifics. I think there's always a place for financing a pool of assets if the investors are prepared to make the commitment and find the right elements in that pool of assets and the operators. Personally, I favor the relationships with the mini studios. So companies that are able to, through having access to capital, become a small studio. Because control over the IP is what we want. An alignment of interest between the operator and the investor is the key thing that we look for. And that is what protects investors ultimately.
Thank you. Rosa.
Still something about slate. So from an investing point of view, a slate may be interesting if you can sort of cross-collateralize, so meaning if you invest in just one project at a time, they may sort of lose everything or be lucrative, but on a slate you sort of diversify a little bit, and then maybe one
Like
is
a
really
portfolio,
good.
yeah.
It's like a portfolio.
Yeah.
So that is interesting, and some investors have been doing that with good success. And obviously the co-production side in Europe is very strong. To work between the countries, to bring in subsidies and to bring in soft loans and that kind of money that is all around Europe. So they have been really good tools, and then bring on a bit of equity investment or maybe collateral or something to the pot. So I think those models are not going away. Of course, the problem may be that some of the soft monies, some of the subsidies, we may not have in another 3, 4, 5 years because of maybe also the political climate in some countries in Europe.
So then I'll make a little advert. I'm based in the UK, so we operate out of London. And as some of you may know, as of 2 months ago, the UK has changed, improved, I should say, substantially, the tax credit that applies to the independent film. So with budgets of up to 15 million that qualify as British or as UK official co-productions, will benefit from a tax credit that nets down to approximately 40% of qualifying spend. That speaks to your point of throwing more money out to the industry to help and facilitate. The indie sector in the UK had suffered a lot not least because of the growth in the high-end TV. But it's just to say, we hope that the UK will become once again a preferred co-producing partner for independent producers.
And the UK belongs to the, I would say, big nations in terms of film producing and etc. So talking about territories, what about the smaller territories? What types of opportunities can they have in an ecosystem where money, talent, distribution are hyper-condensed? What's your take on this? Rosa, would like to...
I'm coming from the small, ecosystem, so...
I don't want to say what is small.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that I sort of have looked at it from a sort of personal point of view. So I'm from Finland. We have 5 million people there. And of course, if you think of the film and the TV industry, while it's big, it's for instance quite actually substantial. The creative industry in Finland. We are having trouble at the moment financing because our local channels are so few. We only have about 4 commissioning channels, and then at the moment the streamers are less enthusiastic about local language content as they used to be. So I think they're being careful about their funds, since they also are experiencing a lack of funds due probably to a bit more churn of people picking and choosing which services they subscribe to. And so as you know, in the Nordics, some streamers have also been in big trouble, so that has reflected in them. And I have to say that while I do believe that some part of our community should make local language content, a part of our filmmaking community should be gearing projects just into the global market, because the worth of the Finnish film industry is less than 0.5%, like 0.5% of the global industry, so it cannot sustain a large number of projects. So I think the small markets will have to be more commercial thinking in the way that they tailor projects and gear them right away more to be global and more attractive, because some of the money has to come from foreign sales. We cannot sustain it with our own theatrical or even SVOD deals.
I would like to go back to these new roles, new rules, new landscapes beyond the territories now. We have this transformation from producer and creator-centric to audience-driven. No need to talk about social media, online content, overflow of online content, which will be even like exploding with the usage of AI and, I mean, synthetic content coming up. So what do you think is going to change in terms of new models of financing in public and private-backed production, where success is going to be even more difficult to get in this flood of content? How do you see the situation? Louis, you would like to start?
Well, it's true that some investors are also going to look at company investment rather than film investment, because it's a more reassuring kind of investment, because it's, I'd say, more of a classic way of investing, and you also benefit from a catalog that you may have already in the company. But through that investment, it will allow for sure the production company to have money to develop, maybe finance, acquire some IP. So we could see some more investment in companies. You were talking about the EIF, so the European Investment Fund. They last year, and it's going to go up until 2027, they are committing to investing in funds that are committing to invest in content or in companies. So we see also some I'd say big European financial backing. They also have a lot of a guarantee system in what you're signing today. Yeah, but we'll probably also see some new models. I was talking about the creatives, so it's producer coming together, and they know that they wouldn't be able to raise money just with their own company or with their own project, so they rather create some kind of pool of projects and get them together and raise money for all of them, because they know that being all together will give them more leverage in terms with potential investors.
Elisa?
This is a difficult question. Because I wish I had a crystal ball. But so we see some trends, right? And I have some reservations personally in terms of investing in production companies, and we could spend a whole debate about that.
Right.
But the one trend that I definitely welcome is, and I'm seeing that more with American indie producers, is producers getting involved in the sales process and in the distribution, but actively involved, wanting to be sitting at sales meetings, wanting to be part of the developing of the marketing campaigns, primarily for domestic distribution, which is a new way of taking control, and it does benefit investors at large. It also requires repositioning, I think, the job of a producer to being more on the commercial side. But the industry is very open to that. Sales agent, I mean, it's all on a relationship basis, but sales agents tell me they're very happy to have those types of conversations, sitting together with producers. And we or when I represent investors, I see that as a very positive move.
Very interesting. I had recently a a keynote about producers at the Berlinale, and I was also like seeing a lot of people from the EPC networks, and it's the commercialization, the role between the creativity and the commercialization is something which is really hard to handle. Rosa, you want to add something?
I'll sort of add a little sort of a kind of next type angle here. So when you're talking about audience-driven completely to maybe the old models where we think the audience may want to see something and then every middleman sort of contributes something to the mix. I've been observing, my daughter is 16 and her friends, and they are actually paying to subscribe to some obscure like YouTube channels of Korean content and whatever. So I think that will be actually a huge thing, because at the moment, of course, as we know, all our linear commissioners are scratching their heads how to get the younger audience involved into linear content, and that obviously will never happen. Good luck with that, but
wait. I think, and that's where again. I mean, yesterday I had a panel with a Korean expert in the creative industries on the panel, and we were talking a lot about the virtualization of characters. So if I link this to what we were saying before about like the talent and etc., or if I even link it to audience-generated content. I mean, there is just a little step to think like, when is it happening that everybody can say like, my digital double can be in that series?
But you know, all of these things like Wattpad, as you know, fan fiction, where sometimes that can get so popular that films are made of it, or YouTube channels where you pay to see somebody's content, or Patreon where you want to follow. They are all like very fan-based, and they're also social media-based. So there are actors actually, and this is a tip for everyone, there are actors that are not that well-known maybe in the sort of mainstream. However, they have huge followings. When they post something, you know, millions of people immediately react to that. And that's really interesting. So I think it's a good idea to tap into that as well, because of course there are also models. Yesterday I was at a panel with the guys who are doing the, how is it called now? How is it called? Well, it's anyway, it's the guys from Zoetrope that started the DCP, so it's the decentralized
based
picture
on blockchain,
production. So it's a blockchain.
You can vote. It's a system
where you can
vote
enter your projects, and others will sort of be paid in their tokens to review the projects, and some projects have arisen from that. There are systems now where individuals can be little equity investors, so if they like a project. And of course crowdfunding is already an old thing. Finland did that already in 2010 when Iron Sky was not completely, but majorly crowdfunded. So there's a lot of these new things happening. And of course, actually, the old style of doing things, I think we are still holding on to it, but it's slowly crumbling. And we are seeing now in Europe that finally Americans are coming to us because they don't have the money anymore to pay for everything. So they are coming and trying to find out what the European models are, how we actually finance things here. So it's a very interesting time, a time of opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking about the European perspective, and if we really look at the European ecosystem for investors, what do you think is missing in the big pictures? What do you think we don't have and we should have in our investment ecosystem? Is there anything that you are missing? That was like, oh, if we would have that, or in Europe we have it all, and the States are getting inspiration from us.
You mean to attract new investors?
Yes.
Well, I'd say there's no famous success story of investors in the ecosystem who just arrived and thrived, and maybe it's missing. and people are maybe not vocal enough about what they do, finance, and when it works, because I'm talking to investors all the time, trying to get them to invest in the industry, either in a film or in a fund, and I see that they really have a pretty negative vision of film investment. And the fact that it's very risky, and that sometimes they get screwed by the deals they get. So I'd say we're missing some good communication on the fact that it's a real interesting underlying asset, and that you can actually make some money out of investing if you do it well.
Good point. Excellent.
I would like to see some support to companies. If you think about the US system, there's no public support for companies whatsoever.
Right.
But what you've got is the major studios offering all sorts of deals for young companies to pay for their overheads, to pay for their development, and these are all very commercial arrangements, of course. But and they have existed for decades. But they support the development and growth of production companies in particular, and we don't have that commercial, let's call it, system in Europe or the UK, and I would like to see some public support in that direction.
Interesting too. Yes.
Just when you mean public support from
like R&D support, like there's R&D subsidies and tax credits and the likes that apply to life sciences, for instance. Biotech. I appreciate that those are in very different industries with different drivers, but they are extremely risky businesses. We don't have that. Perhaps you have it in France, I don't know, but certainly not in the UK and in most territories that I've spoke to.
Yeah. Well, it's in France we have it, but it's more on a project-by-project basis rather than for the structure.
Yeah.
In Germany, there are some little subsidized programs for small companies in the creative field to get like advice or to get some specific little credits when they start, and they are the creative industry since 2008, I would say, have got a little of support, but we're not talking about millions at all.
Yeah,
But still.
The Nordic countries have a very good system of subsidies and also support for the companies. But my sort of 2 cents for this question would be that I think what you guys, for instance, are doing and what we're doing too is speak and find financiers from maybe people or companies or foundations that didn't think they wanted to invest in film, but we can somehow sort of convince them to try that. And I think we need many more people like you to go and find those sources of funds, because they are many, and Europe has so much money, so much old money that could be used to sort of like support the creative industries. On the other hand, I also think that it's always good to be collective. We're an ecosystem, we're a collective, and to get together with other people, be it other investors or be it other filmmakers. And maybe it's like your company can only make one film, but maybe you can be 5 companies and have a slate of 5 films and go to sell that or something. So get together with others, because that's where your network will be everyone's network that's in your pool of people. So that would be my...
That's great. So as we are, the time is really like rushing. I would love to go now fast forward into the future again and see which are the kind of trends that you are seeing coming up for, let's say, more innovative. I mean, you can get a little bit crazy. So I would love to know, like, let's push the boundaries there. What could be a new kind of innovative financing in terms of non-public financing? Or you can take the question as you like, what do you see, which is hot, which is coming, which would be innovative, what you wish? Or you can tell me What is the outlook you say in 2025 when we're in Cannes next year? You can pick which one you want, but I want a future answer. Louise,
Yeah.
really like waiting.
Yeah,
Let her go.
Yeah. So it's not about next year. It's more about new investors coming in the industry, and I think that in the upcoming years we're probably gonna see, and I hope we'll see what is actually happening in the music industry, where you have big institutional investors. I'm talking about Blackstone, Goldman Sachs, creating funds to buy catalogs, and I think this is something that's gonna happen also in the film industry, because with all the platforms giving more access to the audience and the performance of films and TV series, and the fact that I think at some point producers and actors will get paid and be incentivized on whether it's working or not. It's gonna, I think, create more fluidity and liquidity on the and more transparency on the revenues stemming from film and TV series. So I think in the coming years we'll see more and classic actors coming in the industry, but more on the catalog and second market to buy cycles and upcoming revenues.
I see that as a trend, and for that to materialize, what we need is to simplify the waterfalls. Because we have that in the US. I actually work with a fund that buys only libraries for film and TV, and have done that for many years. But they have difficulty coming to Europe, because when they look at the waterfalls, it's all far too complicated. So I think there's work for us as financiers to do to achieve that, right? But my wish, which is partly a wish, but also something that I see is coming, is we need at least one more well-equipped, creative, and well-capitalized domestic distributor, because I think we need more competition in the US on that front. And not necessarily new, but more creative distributors in Europe, in that we are not so focused on how much we spend on P&A, but more an approach that is tailored to what the film needs and how to reach their audience in whichever way is necessary.
Great. Rosa?
I think that the big trends will be the sort of fall of the gatekeepers and the middlemen. So there will be more and more attempts to bypass some of the players and the layers in the industry. And this can be, of course, achieved by models of distribution, maybe that go directly to the consumers, or other innovative things that we can do to achieve that. Obviously, AI, all the new technologies are going to be a huge thing. They're all the time developing, and we're seeing new, because it's not only about being able to create content, but also just in every aspect of filmmaking, what a person used 5 days for now can be done in 5 minutes with something that's developed today, and tomorrow it will be probably 2 minutes. I also think that since one of the bottlenecks has been the talent, and that I think more and more of the actors that don't want to be behind the sort of agency gatekeeper system will come forward to develop their own passion projects. I mean, of course, there are already many actors who have companies, but with the younger audience that's even more social media savvy, and they understand about that generation, I think they will be active in sort of creating bridges. So they will come on projects that will be actually financed due to their sort of presence. in there.
Yeah,
So that's
very interesting. I like that. Wonderful. So that's great perspectives. Let us see which ones will be realized when we come back next year. Before I thank you, I would like to see if there are any questions in the audience that you would like to address to one specific speaker or to hold the panel. If just wanted to check. Anyone? Yes, we have one here. Thank you very much for the microphone.
All right, good morning, everyone. I have a rather difficult question. The European Securities Market Authority, which is the European authority basically monitoring private investments in Europe, published a number that there's 12.4 trillion euros of private investment last year in Europe. That's 3 times the GDP of Europe, of Germany, sorry. 12.4 trillion is like 1 million times more than we spend as an industry. None of that money comes to our industry. Why? We are not an asset class as a film. At the same time, we have another industry that is used to failure. The VC industry has a business model where they count on 95% failure, and they still manage to attract billions and billions of euros every year. Why can't we do that?
Do you have a specific person you'd like to ask, or for everyone?
That's for everyone.
I think we need collective knowledge here, so let's go. We're talking about collectivity.
The thing about VC is that they go into sectors where, yes, out of 10 deals, they hope that 1 will do well, 5 will fail, and 4, maybe, they will wash their
Just
face.
like the studios.
But they also go into sectors where that one investment will justify all the other ones that they lose. The studios, they make money, and as you know, it's along the way. So they're not pure investors. They are justifying their investment by turning the machine around, which is a business. So the difficulty for venture capital has been that the number of exits at an exit are difficult. So the approach that I certainly have tried to facilitate is one where, unlike the traditional VC investment or private equity investment that you need to wait for 7 to 10 years to reach an exit, you are actually creating a much faster distribution cycle, which as part of a VC portfolio may be advantageous, but that is transgressive nearly from their point of view. So there's a lot of education that Logical are doing, that the Finnish funds are doing. There's a couple very active and very active in the venture capital space. But that is not something that the UK VCs are ready to embrace, for instance.
Okay. Anyone
my
else?
experience.
Yes, thank you. Anyone else would like to add something, or shall we take a next question? Okay, next question. Here in the third row. Thank you.
Good morning. Thanks everyone for sharing your experience. I'm an independent filmmaker based in LA, and we do very small budget films like thrillers internationally. And the budget is usually between 200K to 500K. So for our level, I'm sure a lot of filmmakers at our level. So what kind of financing resources do you guys suggest?
Okay, who would like to answer that one? First, Louis, yes?
So it's English language.
English language.
Thrillers.
Yeah.
Well, it's true that for a small, it all depends also on who's directing, who's producing. But it's a reality that for small indie U.S. films, I think the main either you have maybe a sales agent that's gonna help you get some distribution and maybe loans. Otherwise, the solution is equity. That's what's hard about the U.S. indie industry. You don't have that many options. You need to find investors.
Rosa, yes?
Well, I know it's a very difficult space, and of course the problem here is that if you think of the whole creative process of the film, from the idea that sparks in someone's head to when the audience experiences it in a theater, there are so many different phases to that, and one very critical one is the one where you've actually made a great or mediocre or really bad film, but you know you want to take it for someone to see. So I think that in your case, I would try to find a sales company that would be willing to either give you an MG or find a financier to finance the MG, because what we do sometimes is we can also finance a sales company's MG towards the film, which for us is easier than put it in the company that we don't know at all, that maybe doesn't have a track record, because we're believing that if a person that does sales, like let's say we've done something like that with some European and Nordic companies, when they curate and they see the potential of something, then we think that their estimates are accurate. So against their estimates, we are willing to put this in there. Of course, they are taking a risk too, because then they, you know, the MG will come first to us, since, you know, but I would try something like that maybe if I were you.
Mm-hmm. We have time for, thank you. We have time for a last short question with a last short answer. Anyone?
We're like, no, that's the answer.
Great. I mean, in France we say jamais deux sans trois. So if there have been 2 questions, there should be 3. But if you prove us wrong, this is wonderful. Okay, well then, thank you very much to all of the 3 of you for your great expertise. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
thanks
AC.
to you. It went always fuller and fuller in this room. Have a great Sunday. Enjoy the marché further, and see you soon.